I do, as that fact suggests, I do love food. I love it as much as any of you do, I'm sure, but I think I take things a little too far. If you want to see what that means, practically speaking, you can follow me to my car after this show, which is it's like a reverse creepy offer. It's instead of me following you to your car, you follow me to my car, and you'll see inside the car, as I open the door, car is very clean, but in the front seat, there is this triangle stain on the front seat right between my inner thighs. And that stain, some of you may know what that is, some of you may not. That stain is a tribute to all the food that I am eating in my car on a regular basis. I am a legitimate professional car eater. That's what I would call myself. And some of you might be like, are you a professional? It sounds like you're dropping a lot of food. I would say it's because I'm dropping a lot of food. That's what makes me a professional, right? It's like if you go to a restaurant, you see a skinny chef, you're like, is the food even good here? You have questions. Nobody has questions in my car. People look at my car, they go, this guy's doing a lot of eating in his front seat. And I am. So that stain is a tribute to all the food, the hundreds of pieces of food that have fallen in between my lap. At first, and then eventually I pick them up and eat them. There's no wasting of food, obviously, going on in my car. And it's fine. I'm working with it. You know, that's who I am. There's a lot of self-acceptance around it. Except there is a day every 4 years that's quite a nightmare. It's the day that I return my car lease. And that is a bad day. That is a day where I'm looking for every cleaning product in the house to try to scrub the hell out of that stain, because I don't want a call from Volkswagen asking me, Mr. Hassan, have you been eating curry goat in your car? A, none of their business. B, of course I have. Why wouldn't I? I can't think of any reason not to anymore. That's right, curry goat. Curry goat, not a handheld sandwich guy. Not just a handheld sandwich guy, definitely also a handheld sandwich guy. But I'll go into the curry goat world more often than I care to admit in my car. And it's a weird, you don't wake up in the morning saying you're going to eat curry goat in your car tonight. That's not how, you don't wake up and go, tonight, me, some goat in the car. It's more of a crime of passion, if it is anything. Usually this is how it goes down for me. I'm heading home from a comedy club on Bloor. It's around 11:30, and I'm actually doing math. I'm usually doing math. I'm like, okay, when did I eat? I ate at 7. Now it's 11. If I can just go till 7 tomorrow morning, that's 12 hours. If I can keep going till 10, that's a hello intermittent fast. Don't know what that feels like, but I've heard great things. Everybody's talking quite a bit about the fasting, regeneration of cells, etc., etc. I can do this, and then I just see the neon glowing sign of the real jerk. And then it's over. It's over. I lose control of my mind, of my stomach, my steering wheel. I don't know, there's a little voice that just goes, you know you want it, you fatso. And that's it. That's all I need to hear. And I pull over, and I don't really remember it. It's like a blackout. It is like a blackout. I don't remember speaking to anyone in there. I don't remember the transaction. I just sort of come to in my car with an open styrofoam container, and I'm driving and the windshield's just steaming up. And if you're wondering, oh, there's a container, where does all the spillage come from? It's because ratios, man, ratios. You gotta have the exact same amount of, goat and black-eyed peas and rice and hot sauce and coleslaw in every forkful. And secondly, the real jerk has a very small fork that they provide with. It's too small. The fork is too small. Anyway, just the fact that I've talked about all of this, it's very clear to me. You know that saying, he died doing what he loved? That's where it's going to happen. That's for sure where it's going to happen. He died doing what he loved, putting hot sauce on food that was already hot enough while he drove into a wall. That's 100% where it's going to happen. But I've been a fan of food for a very, very long time. And the origin story, and I mentioned sandwiches. We've mentioned sandwiches a few times now in my fun fact, talking about my own handheld sandwich love. And the reason that'll come up often is because my nickname in high school was Ali Hassan-wiches. And well earned, but not a great story as far as how it reflects on me. But I'll tell you anyway. I was in the 8th grade, and my mother, God bless her, had been making us sandwiches regularly. So every night she would make us a sandwich. She'd make herself and myself the same sandwich. She worked, I would say, 45 to 50 hours a week. She was out of the house, and she was nice enough to make us both sandwiches. Now, these sandwiches, sir, what is your name, by the way? Tim, tell me what word comes to mind if I describe this sandwich. White bread, tomato, cheese, closed sandwich. What does that sandwich feel like? Bland is great. Anything else you got? She's making it the night before and putting it in foil. Soggy. So moist. Foil, for God's sake. God forbid any moisture get out of that packaging. So every day, and my mother was content with this. My mother had bigger fish to fry. She had other issues. The sandwich didn't matter. But I'm in the 8th grade, and this is the 80s. And every friend I have, it was like their mother was at home working full-time on their lunch. That's what it felt like. Everybody I had one friend, Zach Moose. Zach, his mother, I don't know how many of you remember Tupperware. I know some of you definitely do. In Tupperware, you couldn't see inside Tupperware. So Zach just had surprise after surprise. Sitting beside me, chips, pickles, blueberry muffin. It was just endless. It was a smorgasbord of lunch every day. And I'm here with my foil-wrapped, soggy sandwich. And it was embarrassing. And the sandwiches he would have also, it was things I'd never even heard of. I remember one day he has this sort of pinkish meat in his sandwich. And I was like, what is that, man? He goes, oh, it's corned beef. Corned beef? What in God's name is corned beef? You take corn and beef and it's put together in like a burger patty? Corn and beef? He goes, no. It's corned beef. I was like, corned? You can corn something? Corning is a verb? What's this world of sandwiches and meats and verbs that I don't know anything about? And this was a time of great sharing. We shared things at lunch. Nobody shared anything with Ali Hassan. Nobody wanted anything that I had. Nobody wanted a nibble on the soggy sandwich. Once in a while, a friend would just leave a little pack of raisins beside me and walk away, and that was it. Some sympathy raisins would be the most that I got. So I was getting more and more frustrated over time with my mother. And, I was a 13-year-old who felt like he'd seen the world. He knew a couple of things. He knew how to handle this situation. And I went home one day, frustrated by my everyday lunch hour. And I said to my mother, I said, Mom, your sandwiches taste like shit. And I'll apologize to you now. For those of you who gasped, I've apologized to my mother many times since. But in the moment, I thought this is the only way. This is how I will phrase this constructive feedback for my mother, and hopefully it's taken in the spirit with which I deliver it. And my mother, first of all, I just swore to my mother, and my mother didn't swear. That's not something she did. My father swore a lot, but my father was also an English teacher. So his swearing didn't really sound like swearing. Those sons of bitches for whom I have the utter disregard. I mean, it was a fancy swearing. It didn't sound like offensive in any way. Smart swearing. And then my mother never swore. I heard her swear once ever in my entire life, ever. She had a new boss who had come in, who was, I guess we didn't even use the term back then, but was a toxic boss. And my mother came home, she threw her bag on the couch, and she was like, that Barbara is she's just this bitch type of woman. I was like, you were so close. You had the plane, you just couldn't land it. Oh my gosh, you couldn't let the B word just, float out there on its own. So that was the closest my mother's ever gotten to swearing. And here I am calling her sandwiches the S word. And I'm ready for something to shake down. I don't know what, but it's going to be ugly, I'm sure. And instead, my mom goes very calm. That's when I knew things were going to be bad. I was like, oh no, my mom didn't do calm, and now she's very calm. And I'm like, oh no, what is this? My mom says, okay, you don't like my sandwiches? You can make your own sandwiches from now on. And that woman could hold a grudge. And so I was making my sandwiches from that day for the remainder of my life. That's how it went. There was no way out of that. And at first I was like, good, I will make my own sandwiches. And then I remembered, I don't know how to make sandwiches. Right? I'm a 13-year-old in the 80s. We had nothing. We had no magazines. We had no Food Network. We had nothing. The only thing we had in our house, Betty Crocker cookbooks. That's all we had. I don't know if anybody knows what that is. It is the most useless thing if you want to make a... You open up a Betty Crocker, it's something like, page 55, here's how you make a pineapple raisin bunt cake. I'd be, you know what? By the time I find out what a bunt is, I'm late for school. This is not helpful, Betty Crocker. There were no resources. So I turned to an old standard that even I could make, peanut butter sandwiches. This was a different time where peanut butter wasn't responsible for manslaughter. It was a different time. You eat it, nobody died. And then that got boring after a while. And I was like, what else can I do with these sandwiches? And I was watching my dad. Every Saturday he would make omelets. So I was like, oh man, maybe I'll make an omelet sandwich. So I started making omelet sandwiches and taking those to school. And then over time, getting a little bit bored with that, I would add like a tablespoon of salsa into the egg mixture before I made the sandwich. Or I would saute some black olives, and I'd have this black olive. And then eventually I was looking for things in the fridge, and my dad had this French cream cheese, Boursin. I don't know if you know Boursin cheese. It's like a fine herb cream cheese. And he wouldn't let us have it. He would tell my sister and I, every time you eat it, you don't pack it properly, it dries out, I'm wasting my money on cheese. So now I'm secretly having this clandestine cheese, taking it out in the fridge and putting it inside the sandwich. And now I'm the only guy in the 8th and 9th and 10th grade having black olive and salsa Boursin omelets, and Ali Hassan-wiches was born. I will say this, just in closing, Ali Hassan-wiches now has high cholesterol, is prone to diabetes, his blood pressure is up, and there's a few issues. He's had gout. So if you have somebody in your life who's interested in food, don't leave them to their own devices. Sit there with them, coach them through it, and introduce them to healthy food. They don't have to be up here on stage wearing a girdle just to feel some level of comfort in front of an audience. So I got an awe. I wasn't going for an awe. I wanted you to laugh at my girdle. Together we laugh at the girdle. Thank you. You've been a wonderful audience. I appreciate you so much.